So we're going to look at, if we go from expanding to what that looks like. So let's just go with this one, x plus 2, x plus 3. Now, when we expand that, if we look at this, we're going to have x's, which will give you an x squared. And we've got the plus 2, which will give you 2x. And you've got the plus 3 here, which will give you 3x. And 2 by 3 would give you 6. Now, I really like to start on the array model. The reason for that is it helps us understand how we factorize. So we can also expand by going x by x, which gives us x squared. Then we can also look at 2 by 3, which gives us 6. Notice that when we multiply this and that, it will give you these numbers specifically. Okay. When we go to multiply out the other two that we haven't yet, which would give us 2x plus 2x, and this one, not that one, and this one plus 3x, that gives us two numbers, right? So that will give us two terms, I should say there. So that will then turn into x squared plus 5x plus 6. So similarly here, you notice when we go x by x, it gives us this. 2 by 3 will give us 6. But then we get two terms with the power x to the power of 1. Now that's really important because that's expanding. When we factorize, we go from the expanded form back into this. Why do we do this? Just quickly. We do this because it's actually going to tell us where the x-intercepts will be with the null factor law, which will then tell me this is going to be -3, -2, and that's going to be there, and that's later on. This is why we're doing it, to try and help us with the later section to graph them. But let's not worry about that for the moment. So when we change something like this and we want to factorize it, how do we do it? Well, the very first thing you want to look at the numbers in front of this one, and look at the numbers here too. Here we've got a 1. Well, how do you get 1x? Now remember, how do we get the x squared? That only comes from one multiplication. So I know that it needs to be x by x. That one's pretty easy. Now, we also have the plus 6. That comes from one multiplication as well. Now, that could come from two numbers multiplied by each other, 2 and 3. It could also come from 1 and 6 as well, though. So it could come from either of these. Now, why? Because that's going to give you the result here. What we need to look at is this one. So we don't just randomly guess numbers. We also need to look at the middle number. This gives us a lot away. We also need to look at this and what the term is. Now, if I know this is positive, the only way I can get this is from either two negatives or it could be two positives. So what I mean by that, I'll just make those ones positive, is if you think about it, it could be like 1 times 6 or 2 times 3 positive, or it could be -2 times -3. However, if you look at this term, this gives us a bit more information. This is positive 5x. That positive here indicates to me, because this is positive, these terms have to be positive. So it can't be this one, because I've got a positive number. They either both need to be negative or both be positive. Because if I expanded this out, just say that was 2 and 3, that's going to be -2x and -3x. That's going to give you a -5x term. When they're both negative in here, you're going to get a negative term in the middle, right? So that means already I know that these need to be positive. So it's kind of like analyzing. That's why our learning intention today is to really analyze about how we factorize. Let's analyze the quadratic equation or expression and look at the terms. So the first term I always look at is this, x. If it's just x squared, it's going to be x and x. The next term I'll look at is, what are the factors of this? This is also positive. It needs to either be positive or negative, both of them. However, this is positive, so it needs to be positive. Also, don't forget, how do I get the 5x? The 5x comes from the combination of these two, which is really the product, or the, sorry, not the product, it's the sum of the multiplication of these. So I can already see it's 2 and 3 because I know these both need to be positive. That is going to give me 2x. This will give me 3x, which makes it 5. So the sum of these. Now, you can use a cross multiplication method, and how that works is like this. When we do our multiplication of our x's, that's going to give me x squared. So we just multiply down. That will give me x squared, which is my first term. When I multiply 2 by 3, that's going to give me my 6. Why we do the cross multiplication is because that's like that, 2x, 2 times x will give you 2x. X times by 3 will give you 3x. And then we need to add these together because that's going to be your expanded terms, right? X squared plus 6 plus 2x plus 3x. So that will be 5x. So therefore, I can see that that would be my factors. So that is my factor there. Let's have a look at another one and just speed it up a little bit more. So we're going to go with x squared plus, let's go with 7x plus 12. Okay, straight away I'm looking at this. I know it needs to be x and x. I'm looking at this term. This is positive. These need to either be positive or negative. If this is positive, they have to be positive. I'm thinking now of factors of 12. 1 and 12. 2 and 6. Or 3 and 4. I need the multiplication of these to add up to 7. That would be 3 and 4. 3x, 4x, they're both positive, gives me 7x. Another way. Similar question, slightly different. Same process, x squared. It's going to be x by x, 12. Factors. Could be 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. Could be any set of these. Positive. This is negative though. The only way to get negative x's, and because to get a positive number here, these would both have to be negative because a negative number times a negative number is going to give me a positive. But I need negative x's when I expand these. So 3 and 4 would also then give me 7. 3 plus 4 gives me 7. 2 plus 6 gives me 8. 1 plus 12 gives me 13. So I could actually make up these other ones. Minus 8x plus 12. This one, x squared, so x and x, positive term, but this is negative. They have to be negative. Factors of 12 that they need to add to give me an absolute value of 8 would be 2 and 6, because that would give me negative 2x. That would give me negative 6x. That gives me a total of negative 8x. Let's look at this one. Same thing again. X, x. Positive term, either they need to be positive or negative, both of these. This is negative. They have to both be negative. Factors of 12, well, that would have to be 1 and 12 to get negative 13. And it doesn't matter which way you write this. You could write this as x minus 12, x minus 1. Normally, you kind of write them with the highest value sort of here, but it doesn't really matter. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Let's look at another one. X, x. Okay, this is positive, so this needs to be positive or negative, both of them. This is negative. 3 and 2, because that's going to give me 5x, negative 5x, and that's going to give me positive 6. X squared minus 3x minus 2x plus 6. So it's this middle term. So really when you do it, look at here. Then you want to look at this number and really the term here and the term here to help you then indicate what these need to be. So you're going to use both of these to determine what's going to be there. And then you've got to use this number for the factors that need to add up to that. So if I've got x squared plus 5x plus 6, we've got x and x. This is positive. That means that they both need to be positive or negative. That's positive. That means they both need to be positive. 2 and 3 would give me 5, and it would give me 2 times 3 is 6. So we look for the addition of the factors and the multiplication of the factors to give me that one. Let's look at a slightly different scenario this time. Slightly different. I've now got negative 6. Well, let's look at first this one. The only way to get x squared is x by x, right? Negative. Well, the only way to get a negative number here, one has to be positive and one has to be negative. So I'm thinking of what are the factors of 6? Minus 6, 2 and 3, multiplication, I should say. The trick here is I can look at this. This will show me the sum of the two numbers with one being positive and one being negative needs to be negative 1. That means it has to be 3, with the 2 being positive and the 3 being negative. Because when you expand it, you're going to get 2x minus 3x. So again, you're still looking for the sum of these being 1, with one being positive and one being negative. If you think about when one's positive and one's negative, you're really looking for the difference between them, because another word to use instead of subtraction is difference. So I can look at this and I know I've got a difference between my factors needs to be 1, because one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. We're not adding them now or both taking them away, like one's negative and then you take away another negative, you're sort of moving further away. We're looking at the difference between these two. And I also know, because this is negative, that means that the factor, the number that is higher, needs to be the negative. Similarly, I could write this as this. That's going to be x for my x squares. Factors of 6. The difference between them needs to be 1, but positive 1. This has a difference of 1. If it's positive 1, that means the plus 3 minus 2, because that would give me 3x minus 2x. So we can look at the difference between these two is 1. 3x, 2x. Let's look at a couple of more. X, factors, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Difference between them needs to be 4. 2 and 6. The greater one needs to be negative 6, because I've got a negative number. It's going to give me negative 12. Negative 6x plus 2x will give me negative 4x. I've got my x squared. Again, here, don't forget, if I've got a negative, x, we always look at the x first, x. Because this is a negative, I know one needs to be negative and one needs to be positive. We're looking at the difference of 4 between factors of 12, 2 and 6. Except this time I know my bigger number needs to be positive. Minus 2 plus 6 will get me to positive 4. Do a couple more. X. This is negative. This is negative. The difference between the two numbers of the factors of those needs to be 7. 2 and 9. Difference between those is 7. Negative clearly needs to be 9. Minus 9x plus 2x will give you minus 7x. Look at the x first. Negative 18 needs to be negative and a positive, because the only way you're going to get that multiplication, guys, when you think about it, if this is, when you do your array, this is going to be x squared, right? Because that's x by x. This is negative. Well, I know that a negative and a positive will give me a negative answer. I also need it to be positive 7. So that means it needs to be plus 9 minus 2, because that's going to give me negative 2x. That's going to give me 9x. They cancel each other out to give me a total of 7x positives, right? And this will give me negative 18. So that will give me 7x in total when you sort of look at it. So that's where we're going with that. So you can use the array model to help you too. So similarly, oops, do another one. We'll just change it up a bit here. Here, I'm looking at this. I know that that needs to be positive x. They need to be pluses, because this is a plus and this is a plus, right? So if you want to look at it as an array model, we've got x. We've got x. That will give me my x squared. The next thing I'm looking at is what gives me this square. This square has to be something regarding with 30, but also the factors add up to 11x. Oh, that's got to be 5 and 6, because that's going to give me 6x. That's going to give me 5x, which will give me 11x, and 5 by 6 will give me 30. So my factors is x plus 5, x plus 6. Love the array model. Looking at this one, x, if you think of the array model, well, I know I've got x squared, so that has to be x and x to give me x squared. The next thing I can look at is the number down here. What's going to give me 12? This is going to give me positive 12, but it also needs to give me negative 7x. So it's going to have to be negative 3, negative 4, because that will give me positive 12. That will give me negative 4x, and that will give me negative 3x. That gives me negative 7x in total. Note, if I just change this to, whoops, x squared plus 7x plus 12, well, that would just change this. Now I've got plus 7x. I hope that helps you there. So the array model can definitely help too. And if you look at just one more, we'll look at this one. We'll go with negative x minus 12. If you look at this array model, you can do it either method is fine. X by x will give me x squared. How do I get negative 12? Well, it's going to have to be one positive and one negative. Now the balance of those is going to basically give me one negative x. So that would have to be then plus 3 to give me 3x, and I need negative 4x to be minus 4, because positive 3 times negative 4 will give you negative 12, and that's x squared. So again, I've got x minus 4. My factors are all on the side, x plus 3. That is my lovely tutorial for you.